And today we're talking a bit more about leveraging creators for a game launch specifically. But before we dig into how and why to use creators for launching a game, maybe we should first define what we mean by a launch, because obviously this has a couple of different meanings, and I'm not just talking about launching a game and then on the very launch day when a new title comes out, you release some creator collaborations and so on. But when we talk about the launch, we should also include a couple of other cases which are very typical. So first of all, announcing a game for the first time. So whether that's 6 months ahead or something like this, but before you actually release the final game, that could be considered a launch in and of itself. And also, we're not just talking about new titles. Whenever you release major content updates, such as a season pass or an expansion pack or some other kind of bigger DLC, I think these also could be defined as a launch. So it's very important to understand that what we're going to discuss today can be applied to these use cases as well. Anything else you'd maybe want to add to the list, Lucas, before we dig into the details?
No, I think you got it there. It's launch and mini launches, if we can call them that way. But I think they are such an event within a game. As soon as you have like a new map or like a new event, or remember Guild Wars and those Halloween events, that was definitely an event in game. So anything could be a reason to be a launch. So yeah, everything that we're going to discuss today is definitely applicable to those in some regards at different scale, but we'll get to those details in a minute.
And by extension, you could maybe apply some of these learnings to outside of gaming as well. So if you're launching a new mobile app or even a physical product that you sell in stores, some of these could apply to those cases as well. But we're going to be focusing more specifically on gaming in this case, and that goes for both mobile gaming and PC console titles as well. But yeah, so as we said, the topic is how to leverage content creators as part of a game launch. And I think why it is important to talk about this is because creators can definitely be one of the biggest elements in making a launch successful. But at the same time, we do need to understand what marketing and other teams are doing behind the scenes, because a launch, it's a hectic process. I've been involved in several of those in the past, and everyone in the team has so many deadlines to hit and tasks on the to-do list that need to be completed, and you have a specific day when stuff needs to come out, so there's not much leeway. And obviously, if you start using creators or hiring creators for this, and if you need to manually manage 20, 30, or even 100 collaborations, the time you need to spend on this is going to be completely impossible to manage on top of your other launch activities. So you do need to be able to use automation so you get time to focus on the bigger picture and so on. But we're going to talk about how you do that more precisely a bit later. But maybe we can start with why should you use creators as part of a launch? And I think there's several reasons here. First of all, creators have a very different, very unique and authentic style that is going to be different from all of the very polished marketing material that you're putting out and all of your that comes out from your point of view. So you're basically adding another style that can work great for your target audience. I would also say that creator content is not perceived as advertising to the same degree, and this can help a lot because many people are not very receptive towards just your user acquisition advertising in general in many cases. Also, ads are much more short form. for the most part. So it can be hard to communicate more complex USPs, like how your gameplay is different from competitors. Do you have some other unique features that are exciting and so on? So creators that create more longer form content can more easily present this. I think also they make it more relatable to specific audiences versus just seeing advertising directly from the brand itself. Um, they also offer social proof because they are showing, hey, I'm playing this game, it's worth trying out, and maybe you should do it too. They can also serve as an excellent inspiration for developing your own USPs further. So if you do creator collaborations and see which ones perform the best, then you take a look at what they are actually saying. You can actually develop your own communication towards the target audience based on these learnings. And the last thing creators can help you with to a significant degree is differentiating you from the competition. Because if you were to say in ads why you are better than game XYZ, people are not going to find it credible. But if a creator compares you to other similar titles and says, the reason I think this is better is because of the story or better controls or anything like this, it's going to be a lot more believable. So those are at least the ones I came up with. But yeah, Lucas, anything to add from your side?
Not for that list. I think what you said at the beginning, that sometimes if you as a brand want to like work with like 20, 30 more, it really gets complicated. What I've seen in the past is actually companies delaying what they would do with creators after the launch, so that they have time to like do it. But this is sad. It's really like a missed opportunity, because like you have all your efforts going out at once and you try to make the maximum impact, like have the maximum reach, but because of like bandwidth, of course, you prioritize and you don't do this when, as you described, it could be like a major piece in the puzzle. um yeah, so I think definitely finding ways to make it work without spending too much time on it. Of course, you still want the quality to be high. That's also the feeling that we get from companies we talk to. They often want that ambassador feeling from one creator, which is totally normal. I think like you really want like the best face and the best like uh, yeah, the best proof that your game is a good one. But at the same time, if you're like totally new and there's like no other catalog to judge you on or any other games or anything, it's like super hard for like a creator to just say, yeah, I'll make a dedicated video and then that's going to be awesome. So that's why like gaining the trust, getting more and more creators involved at launch, after launch, that's definitely the recommendation there.
Yeah, and I would maybe add to that, that's actually a great point. I would say that the sweet spot for your first creator campaigns to go out would be from the launch day and maybe like a week, within a week from launch. I would say that's typically a good benchmark to use. Just because at launch, what you want to do is generate that critical mass, increase the awareness of the game, so people start spreading the word themselves, are installing it, are playing it, and so on. And if you leave the creator piece to maybe a few weeks after launch or a month after launch or something like that, you're going to just miss out on a massive part of generating that momentum. So that's why it is very important. Of course, you do want to be a bit careful here, because if your own announcement is coming out, let's say very late on Wednesday evening, you don't want a creator in another time zone getting confused about the times and coming out with their content before your actual official announcement comes out. So it might be better to set the timeline for creator content to be published on the following day in these situations, for example. So, but I would say if you're able to lock in creator collaborations right from launch fairly soon after, that's going to help you quite a lot. And then it definitely makes sense to do a second batch later on, but leaving them out completely from the launch day onwards would be a big mistake, just as you said.
They do make mistakes. That's true. Often, in most cases, not. But we definitely have seen some of those cases. So yeah, good that you have a pretty actionable tip here.
Yeah, and maybe one other thing that's good to separate between is, what's the level of brand familiarity of your title and your studio with the audience. I think that also makes a difference, because if you're a very new brand, then creators can help you establish credibility and your brand and so on. And maybe it makes sense for you to ask the creators to emphasize more what makes the game great and so on. But if you're a very known brand or studio, then it's maybe more important to spread awareness that, hey, this is coming from your studio specifically who made games XYZ in the past, and kind of highlight the background of the people involved in this project and kind of what they are previously known for and so on. So that's maybe a good thing to take into consideration as well when you plan these collaborations.
Yeah, and I have an example in mind. I'm going to talk in a minute, but it's also interesting that in some cases you had success, you built a brand based on like one game, and you got a huge amount of like organic content because of this. Let's call it Fortnite. That's probably one of the biggest and really pushed YouTube over the past years. So one thing I was looking up to the new title from Epic Games, Rumbleverse, I thought this would be something similar. I think maybe they didn't want this. I don't know, but like it really felt that it was going to be like something similar. I just checked while we were talking. There's like 326 viewers on Twitch looking at Rumbleverse now, which tells me that there's definitely not a huge amount of like organic content being pushed for that game, even though it was coming after such a huge title where you could have assumed that a full sea of like creators would have jumped in and just created content after hours of content after hours of content. So definitely some case by case, but yeah, it's interesting those scenarios that could happen.
Yeah, and I think that's also a good example of if you're launching a new title, even if you have very well loved games in the past, you definitely should still take advantage of creators, because you never know if it's gonna get that organic visibility right out of the gate, and creators can actually help you generate more of that right from the start as well. So even if you have very well-known titles, creators can kind of add to the success of your next title as well, I think. All right, so let's talk best practices. We already touched on some of these, but what would you highlight? What is the most important when you use creators as part of a launch? What should you keep in mind?
First thing is definitely timing. I think you have your specific deadline. You know when everything needs to go out. So work backwards from this. Have a lot of like buffer, especially if you do all the work manually with some creators. That's definitely stuff that can take time. Depending on the size of like the deals, the size of the creators, their specific timelines. So build time in your process to do it. That's definitely that. Then I think the next thing that you want to do is you want to provide them with the good stuff. So the good assets, the free stuff that they could get in game that people could get like further on. If it's like a free to play, if it's a premium game, it doesn't matter. You just get access to the game, and that's already enough. A clear brief with what they need to talk about, talking points and so on, even though if it's like a dedicated or a let's play, you might just want them to just like roll with the game and explore. That's often the best videos that we see.
Yeah, so you highlight definitely some of the most important things. So having a clear brief, and I think that could be a separate discussion altogether, how you construct the creator brief, but definitely providing them clear assets, so both marketing video and gameplay, and then providing them also access to maybe some of the better, higher level items so they can get into the game themselves and explore kind of more advanced content and not just kind of the first beginning of the game themselves, because we've actually found that whenever the creator uses their own in-game footage, that tends to perform better for some advertisers than just showing generic gameplay clips. So just something to keep in mind. We already discussed this earlier, but making sure that you leave some leeway in the publishing schedule. So ask the creators to release the video fairly soon after your launch, let's say within a week or so. But also be careful about time zones and such, so you don't accidentally spoil anything before your official material comes out. Then, of course, hiring a broad spectrum of different YouTubers, that's definitely important. So hire bigger names, hire small and mid-sized creators, because this ensures that, as long as they're making content that's in the same field, so let's say video gaming in this situation, then you ensure that you reach as broad of an audience as possible, because different people who are interested in games are following different types of channels. Smaller channels typically have higher engagement as well, so their fans are more dedicated. So definitely makes sense to hire a big number of those. But then again, the big name creators can help you get even more reach. So using a combination there typically brings the best results.
And people have opinions about like who they want to watch actually. Like so many times I've like, oh no, I don't watch this guy because of X or Y. So it's like your core target, but you could hire the wrong big name that they are really like frustrating quite a lot of like people, and then they would just like be watching like small to mid-sized creators. So like having the big names supported by like small to mid-size is definitely like a good approach. But you could also remove the big name and just have the small to mid-size if the budget was smaller, for example.
Yeah, definitely a good clarification there. And then another point I would like to raise is that consider incentivization as well, if the time until launch allows for this. So, for example, whenever a creator can offer something to their audience, like a special benefit, then it's definitely valuable. So, for example, if they can offer a code, so players can get like a small discount or maybe like a free in-game skin or something like this. So if there is any kind of incentivization creators can offer to their audience, it's gonna make them much more interested in taking the deal with you, because they can provide value to their watchers, and then it's going to be also much more interesting to their viewers because they're getting some additional value from checking this stuff out. So that's one thing you can consider to kind of help with the performance. And the last point, which we started with, is just try to automate as much of the process as possible, because when you get closer to the launch timeline, you simply won't have time for the manual activities. So whether that's looking for more creators, negotiating the contracts, answering questions if they ask about something that is unclear, anything like this, you're going to be knee deep in other launch activities, and you want to be able to focus on the big picture. So if you don't use automation, you might end up in trouble with this as well. So that's just why you should try to make the process as easy for you as possible. And Of course, outreach platforms can help here with the first stages of this, so they can help you sort of find and negotiate maybe some of these creators more easily. But what they don't solve, what a more full, let's say, full funnel automation providers like Matchmade can do is they don't handle the rest of it. So like the contracts, automatic price offers, paying the creators after the collaboration, or handling the communication if there's questions or some missing assets or anything like this. For that, you really want a more full funnel platform and a service that does all of these activities for you during the launch, because you need to be able to put your focus elsewhere.
Yep, totally agree. Not much to add on that front.
So as the last point, let's talk a bit about tracking and what KPIs should you maybe be looking at. I think this is another important thing, because obviously at the end of the day you care about your game sales, but you can't track everything in the same way. So if we're talking about a mobile title, a PC title, or console title, you're not going to have all of the same tracking options available. And obviously you also need to take into consideration how creators work as a medium as well. So for mobile games, looking at engagement metrics, view rates, click-through rates, all of this, I think, is very valuable, because it tells you, are you generating that conversation and that critical mass of awareness for the game to be successful. Then, of course, you can use mobile measurement partners to track the installs and the in-app revenue and so on as well. But you definitely should also have some system of estimating organic uplift in place as well, because a lot of the creator content is going to increase your organic uplift and not simply the tracked installs or direct conversions, let's say. Then
one note about the mobile games here, because they often follow like a different process to launching the games, going through like soft launch and then global launch. Soft launch is challenging for working with like creators. Like you can do it, but because the soft launch is often done in like a specific country, you probably don't need so much automation for those. So if you want to understand the unit economics or the CAC of like getting a new user in that specific market, understanding the LTV from there, that's quite specific. So we've done it for like some soft launch, and it was quite successful. But we see that the real impact and the real interesting stuff happens after the global launch. So something to keep in mind when you want to launch a mobile game through soft launch and then global launch and want to work with creators.
Absolutely. All right, so that's it for tracking mobile games, but let's talk about PC and console next, because here the tracking is a bit different. On PC, it's a bit easier because you can do wish listing, for example, on Steam. You can track stuff on your own website, for example, such as clickouts to different Steam store or other digital vendors, for example. But you definitely should also watch the reach and engagement and view metrics. Of course, how your purchases and installs develop and so forth. But what about consoles? Because there, I think it's a bit more limited even. So, or any other thoughts for PC as well?
For PC and Steam particularly, yeah, the fact that you can have those utilitarian parameters and track, that's definitely helpful. So that's a good stuff. And Steam is definitely not going away, as they've just like passed like 30 million concurrent like players over the past weekend. So that's definitely impressive stuff. But yeah, basically there's like ways to calculate what's a wish list worth, and there's like some conversion rates that you can probably like find out there. Like we cannot guarantee you a specific number of sales or wish list on Steam, which would, as I would understand, is definitely something what people would want. But we can definitely give you the top level metrics, which will be like the number of views that you can get in a specific audience that's really targeted for your game. And then based from there, we'll give you like, okay, what's the potential like click-through rate range, and then you'll get some idea of like what's going to be a wish list rate from those, and then you have the numbers for like the sales. So I think it's in the end quite a streamlined process for that, and I would assume that for other platforms, Epic Games or like the Activision ones, that's also quite similar. For console, as you said, for console, that's a different story. I mean, there's many more like ways to buy online. You don't need to go to the store to just like buy the game. And what I'm thinking is, as you can watch YouTube on the TV, I'm wondering if you can actually go to that link that you see in the description there and then be tracked all the way to the PlayStation or like Xbox store. That's not something I would say 100% sure would give you like some fine tracking, but that's maybe one way to look at it. But for sure, for the rest, you definitely need to like maximize the reach again on that specific audience. And then look at the sales across all the different like channels that you're selling the game through.
Yeah, for console, definitely what you said. So the browser-based purchases on computers can be a leading indicator, but obviously a big part of the purchases are going to be from the console, directly from the store, and then even from brick and mortar gaming shops. So it's only going to be, as I said, it's only going to be a leading indicator of sorts. But they're definitely as well looking at the reach and engagement metrics and so on. And of course, another tactic you could be using on console titles could be something like registering for a reminder, or joining the emailing list of get alert me when the game comes out in my market or something like this. So you could have also other interim metrics, especially if you're doing more of an announcement or pre-order before the actual launch date. So those could also help. Then those are completely doable with creator marketing as well.
That's way easier to do. That's for sure. So I don't know if it works for launch, but yeah, any pre-order or pre-launch strategy could definitely be supported by creators there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then it's like a normal like UTM parameters tracking, and that's super easy to do.
Excellent. But yeah, anything else from your side to raise before we summarize everything up?
Let me see. No, I think we gave some good practice that are pretty actionable for everyone out there that's going to be launching the game in 2023. Let's see if it still applies in like 2024. But I would say that for the time being, YouTube will not change so much. So even though, as we're going to discuss in a few minutes, we'll talk about how YouTube is changing. But I think, yeah, it's still definitely applicable for creators. There's maybe some more topics we could go into like those like pre-launch, soft launch, and dig a bit more some other cases. But I think we got a good base covered there, and could continue the discussion with the persons directly.
Yeah, I think the pre-launch tactics are going to be another episode at a later time, that's for sure.
Yes.
But to summarize this up a bit, what I would highlight how you successfully leverage creators for a launch. So first of all, make sure you provide the creators with a clear creative brief and different kinds of brand assets. That includes both marketing footage and in-game video and image assets. make sure you hire a broad range and big enough number of creators, so you make sure you get high reach and high engagement. Then make sure you leverage the right kind of automation, so you can hire that amount of creators and also manage them effectively, so your time can be spent on other launch tasks and not creator management and emailing back and forth with them.
Are you telling us that creator management is a full-time job?
If you're doing a launch with 50 creators, it's more than a full-time job. It's also going to be replacing all of your sleeping hours if you don't use automation. So definitely look at, what are the automation solutions out there, Matchmade or another solution provider, because they will be able to help you get this done. And then the last point, so try to get the first creator content out relatively close to your launch date. So as a benchmark, within the next 7 days from going live with your launch material.
Yeah, I think what you should aim at is really like the next day. Like after it's also fine, but like if you really, especially for like PC and console, that you want to see a spike somewhere on all the channels that you're sitting through, let's definitely do it like same day or the day after, thinking of the time zones, of course.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that does it for the launch topic. So thank you very much for your insights. But let's then look at the last section of today's episode. So the more topical news, what's going on in creator marketing and YouTube more broadly right now. And we had a couple of topics picked for this week. So let's talk a bit more about YouTube handles and then the new YouTube design changes that are going to be rolling out, or depending on your region, probably already have rolled out to some of you already.
Yeah, quite a big week for YouTube actually. Not so much for creator marketing. I mean, we'll see if it has some impact on this, but from a viewership experience, it could definitely be interesting to do that. So basically what YouTube is doing is making a design change to the viewing experience, to the viewing page, on some and probably most platforms in the future. You'll be able to see that in a bit. But what's standing out for me is the red is gone from the subscribe button. Where is the red button? Like how are like creators like supposed to say hit that red button in the videos? That doesn't work anymore. The button is black. It's more polished. So yeah, no, I like it. I must say it's a clean design.
Yeah, I mean, it looks very good. And other design changes I would maybe highlight there is that, especially on mobile, there's going to be better searching inside the video. So more easily being able to kind of look through the footage. So definitely going to help with the user experience there. There's also going to be some improvements to the pinch zoom. So if you want to zoom in on a specific part of a video, if you're watching it on mobile, that's going to be a bit easier. There's also some kind of ambient mode coming out. Let's see if we can put a preview up on the screen there. And also, YouTube mentioned that some of the YouTube links inside comments and video descriptions and so on will be turning into some form buttons. Let's see if we can put up a graphic of that. But the final format of that, I guess, is still being worked on to some extent. But they've also reworked the graphics of some of the other buttons like sharing and so on. So those are placed a bit differently than they used to be. So overall, just some cleaner, nicer looking UI there. It's going to be interesting to see how this changes, how it's going to format external links in the future. So stuff that doesn't link directly inside YouTube, let's see if there are any changes. But for the time being, at least they didn't provide more specific details than that. But yeah, so excited to see, what's the final form of this? And of course, this is the first design changes to YouTube, or like bigger design changes, you could say, to YouTube in a quite long time. So it will be interesting to see if there's any other updates coming out on this front, sometime soon.
I like what you said, or it's not just what you said. It's the fact of what they're doing is the YouTube links in the video description will change to buttons. I'm really curious to see what this is going to look like. Of course, I don't expect any external link that is not linking to YouTube to become a specific button, but that would be quite interesting to see the format and the size and the place that this will take in the comments or description. So I look forward to this. The one thing that is not covered there, and I don't know if it was like actually announced as a similar news format, but when they started to like have those like most replayed timeline there, that's something that has quite a big impact on like the viewership, on advertisers, because like advertisers really try to get people not to skip. And as a viewer, I must say that I see when I see those like spike on the timeline where the sponsorship ends. So I think like what we can do is definitely encourage not to chapter videos when there's like a sponsor in it, because otherwise the viewers will just skip directly at the end of the sponsor, and then you also see like the spike in like viewership. So that's the most recent feature that I see having like a small impact. It's not huge because the link is still in the description, but it could have like a small impact on for brands there. But yeah, for this new design change, I mean, when you look at what we have seen as description last week on some other videos that we had already up, the link is like still quite visible and definitely accessible within the first few lines of the video. So yeah, now looking forward to see where this goes.
And interestingly enough, actually, I don't know if they officially announced this, but another change that has happened recently is that there used to be those small yellow markers on the timeline for when the ad break would start. So if there is like an mid-roll video ad or something like this, for example, those are now gone.
That's
So
true.
yeah, so now it's I guess it's dynamically serving each person different stuff at different time markers, but like those visual indicators for ad breaks are actually now gone as well. So it will be interesting to see if the ad load increases, for example. But I guess this will remain highly country specific, like where the viewer is based and everything like this. But it will be interesting to see how that also changes in the future.
But now that I think about it, like I haven't seen mid or like during the video roll for quite a while, but I still get like the pre-roll ads. So I would assume that there's like more. So I don't know. I'll have to check on YouTube. I need to watch a bit more of YouTube this weekend and see how this goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, I guess the last change related to kind of these improved links and so on would be the at handles that YouTube is adding. So this is more of a smaller change, but could be interesting to advertisers as well, especially if you have your own YouTube channel that you are putting effort into. So going forward, this is rolling out gradually, and YouTube will email every channel owner when they are able to pick a user handle. This is different from the customized channel URLs based on your username that came out earlier. What this is that in comments, in video descriptions, and so on, you'll be able to tag YouTubers based on the @ handle, just like you would tag someone on LinkedIn or Twitter or somewhere else. But this just makes it easier to interact with others inside the YouTube community. So for advertisers, I think this might be interesting if you're doing a collaboration and you want to make sure the creator tags your brand there. But I would say this mostly benefits those brands that have an active YouTube channel where they are doing things, so it makes sense to kind of guide to their channel more as well. But another kind of very nice user user experience improvement YouTube is coming out now with.
Even though I was quite confused about this one, because
Yeah.
I thought this was already the case, that you could add someone in like the title of like the video or like in the comments. So yeah, but let's see if they don't merge. It would not be the first time Google release something and just like kills it a few weeks after. There's quite some in the Google symmetry already.
Yeah.
So.
But in any case, this should be rolling out in the upcoming weeks. So if you have a YouTube channel, keep an eye on your inbox and see when this becomes available for you to reserve. All right, but I think that was the industry news for this week. So I guess we can wrap this week's episode up here, and let's talk again next week.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.